In a rare instance, Piers Morgan completely dismantled right-wing influencer Sintish, aka Based and Bougie. She attended the Unite the Kingdom rally last weekend, and this week she was a panellist on Piers Morgan Uncensored, where she drove Politics Joe's Ava Santina off the show.
Children have been raped, and rather than people just focusing on the fact that these children have been raped, they're talking about Islamophobia, racism, and all of this.
Piers,
And just
can I tell you
white
what's
men
happening here?
using the example that white men rape in this country is like saying, oh my gosh, Nigerians are raping so much in Nigerians. White men are the majority in this country, so yes, they are going to make up the statistics of men raping. But when we're talking about grooming gangs, yes, it is Asian Muslim men. We're not saying it's all men. We're not saying it's all men. What I'm trying to say is, if someone raped your daughter, you would not like someone to come to you talking about ethnicity, racism, Islamophobia. You would want someone to have compassion.
He is literally just given a statistic making that exact point.
At the end of the day,
Ava is responding to a statistic
young
which she
girls
was
are being
checking.
assaulted. What I'm trying to say is, as a woman, have some compassion. And
No,
if
I'm not going to have you dominate the narrative here as if I'm saying that
young women are being assaulted, and you're first, yes, because you know what you're doing is disgusting and demonic. It's so demonic.
What is demonic? What are you talking about?
It's demonic to
You've just
sit
driven
there
someone to leave
and
the
make
studio. I have a no stupid people rule on panel members for this show. And sometimes we drop below it. The way you started this panel and the way you've ended it suggests that you shouldn't have passed our bar because, frankly, you've been not only stupid and ill-informed and told a bunch of lies, but then right at the end, you've driven one of our regular panel members to leave because you told disgusting lies about her.
Force her.
You made disgusting suggestions about what she did or didn't care about.
She lied. I was just questioning where was her sympathy.
To be clear, Don Keith made a statement involving a statistic. Ava checked it. The 250,000 stat is widely circulated but unsubstantiated, as she explained. The Government Grooming Gangs Task Force, created in 2023, helped police to identify more than 4,000 victims. Let me say what I believe about that. It was disgusting that was going on for so long without proper accountability. It was disgusting that there was a cover-up at all levels of government in this country to not bring the perpetrators to book. Yes, it is true that in that particular grooming gang, rape gang scandal, it involved predominantly British, Pakistani, Muslim men. All of those things are inarguable. But it is also true that the vast majority of sexual crime in this country is perpetrated by white men. Right, so this idea that it's only perpetrated by Muslims is nonsense.
Only Muslims.
And the idea that people like me or Ava Santina have no compassion for the victims, when all we have done for the last few years is express loudly and repeatedly our compassion for the victims and our outrage about the scandal, is frankly ignorant, stupid, and disgustingly offensive. And I don't blame Ava for leaving. And you, I'm afraid, if you ever come back here, which I think is unlikely, Sintish, you should be better informed. And when you're on a panel, you should listen to what people are actually saying before you smear them in the way that you smeared them.
The discussion was about rapes and sexual assault, which, as we know, Muslim men are often the target for this discussion, with the right-wing media continually pushing the idea that grooming gangs are a problem within ethnic minorities or the Muslim community. Yeah, as Piers points out, the narrative that these sorts of crimes cross racial and religious lines is unsubstantiated. According to the ONS, for crimes such as rape and sexual assault, suspects' ethnicity or religion are not recorded, so there is little information on whether these types of crimes are linked to one's background or belief. When people claim there is a race or religious aspect, it's not based on data. What we do have is overall prosecutions and arrest rates in this country. According to the government, these are arrests broken down by race. So as you can see from the graph, white people make up 9.4% of arrests per 1,000 people, black 20.4% of arrests, mixed ethnicity 12.5%, Asian 8.4%, and other 8.5% of arrests per 1,000 people. Some use these stats to show that black and brown people are more likely to commit crimes. However, all this really shows is the racial bias in policing. When it comes to black people, they are twice as likely to face arrest. We know that practices such as stop and search have a huge racial bias against black men. Back to Sintish, at the Unite the Kingdom rally, she said this.
You're seeing people locked up for tweets.
You're seeing people in solitary confinement for a difference of opinion, and now you're seeing people like the likes of Piers Morgan calling us the same old boring far right for being patriotic. Well, I have a question for Piers Morgan. If this is a far right racist extremist event, then what the fuck am I doing here?
Being a person of colour doesn't automatically stop this from being a far right rally, and being a person of colour doesn't stop a person from having far right views. This is Mark Robinson, who once ran for governor as a Republican in North Carolina. He said, "Slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few." Wow. He also called himself a black Nazi on a porn website. Are we going to act like Robinson isn't far right? Curtis, Sintish doesn't seem to think that she is far right because of her skin colour. What would you say to that?
This is the woke right identity politics the right wing always play, okay? Now, you cannot use your blackness to shield your politics. You simply can't, right? It's not like we don't define people on people's races. The ironic thing is this is what the right wing said about the left. Oh, it's all about identity politics. It's not about your personal views. But that's exactly what Sintish is doing. Now, I don't know if Sintish is particularly far right. I don't know. But what is true is she's sharing a platform with people on the far right, with extremist people, with religious fundamentalists, with Christo-fascists, right? That's true. And just because she's black doesn't mean that, you know, that completely absolves all of the political views of other people. That's not true. It's a good way to sort of try and, you know, deflect, though. Because, of course, she was saying, look, I'm black, so this is not far right. The media are lying about you. Well, we literally had a guy bring up the Crusades 1,000 years ago. You had people basically starting a civil war. They want a civil war between Christians and Muslims.
Yeah, didn't Tommy Robinson during one of his speeches last weekend was literally saying, like, we need to get ready to fight. And that's, if that's not inciting violence and that kind of thing, it's, I don't know what is. It's really scary, though.
Well, and, you know, last year, the last Unite the Kingdom rally, we had Elon Musk there, foreign billionaire, by the way. He himself is, and I will say this, is a Nazi. I do cringe when people overuse the term Nazi and fascist, but this guy is. I mean, he literally backed the AfD in Germany, who are a neo-Nazi party. He's pushing conspiracy theories that there's a genuine white genocide. In fact, he had a massive crash out quite recently over The Boys finale because Homelander is supposed to be Donald Trump and he's supposed to be the symbol of fascism. And when, spoiler alert,
Oh no!
I shall not say it. Okay,
I've not watched the
ending.
yet.
The ending is not very satisfying for a lot of right-wing viewers because they're like, "Oh my god, this is so political." I digress. I don't want to spoil it. The point.
That whole show is political. Like that's mad.
But it's simply just satire of the real world. So when people attack The Boys, like, oh, this is so ridiculous. Like, yeah, they're probably even downplaying what reality is like. But you've got Elon Musk saying that the left are inherently violent and you either fight or you die. That is a man who does not belong to this country, is a billionaire, could be the world's first trillionaire, literally bought the American election saying we should have a civil war in this country. So if you're hanging around with these people, then don't cry when people call you far right. There's a long history of minorities supporting far right causes. It just happens because at the end of the day, people of color or people from different communities are not a monolith. You know, you could expect, oh, if you're a person of color, you are, you're woke to injustices. Therefore, you automatically side with other people facing injustice. I actually think that's something the left gets wrong. We sometimes project our own politics onto people, onto minorities, expecting them to reciprocate. But then we're like, oh my God, what? Like, sometimes there's a knee-jerk reaction for the left to say, why is this black guy supporting Nigel Farage? He's voting against his interests. That's true, but I think the way we go about it, let's maybe try and, have a more of a conversation. Again, people can disagree with that, but what is absolutely true is your policies, your views. That's the most important thing, which is what the right wing said they used to believe it. They said it's all about the personal. We don't see race, we don't see colour. They used to say that bullshit, and now they're trying to use identity politics to stop us from criticising their very, very harmful politics.
I think that's part of the thing is that we kind of associate the far right with white supremacy. But obviously, that's not the case. There's many facets to far rightism that isn't just around race or immigration, or obviously that makes up a big part of it. And as you said, we kind of expect people of color, because they are often the victims of people with these, far right views, to yeah, understand that they are victims of it, but they kind of aren't always, or they don't at least see themselves as victims in this kind of instance. In terms of Piers Morgan, though, if we go back to that first clip, I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a day. But what did you make of his comments to Sintish on the show?
Well, obviously, like right now, we're praising Piers Morgan because he took down a right-wing influencer. And most people know not to do this, but we don't need to glaze Piers Morgan. It just shows how the Overton window has moved even further to the right. Piers Morgan is a classic right-winger. Okay, he's not far right, he's not a fascist, he's just a classic right-winger. He's a bit reactionary, he's obviously a transphobe, sorry, I'm just going to say it, he's clearly a transphobe, and he's conservative in maybe his economic policies. Apart from being a transphobe, I think he would consider himself a liberal. But again, he's like your classic right-winger that belonged into the Cameron era, okay? Because now there's even far-right forces emerging, people are saying that Piers Morgan's left-wing, which is crazy. I mean, look, it shouldn't be a left-wing position to oppose anti-fascism. The fact that it's left-wing coded kind of tells you a lot, doesn't it? It just shows that the left are the only people that oppose anti-fascism, all right? But I find it absolutely wild that people call him Piers Morgan left-wing. But again, that's because the window has moved so much to the right wing that Piers Morgan's look like a liberal. So even though I want to praise him now because he did absolutely take her to task, she was him and I believe Don King, the guy who was on the call, was pushing false figures. He was claiming that Muslims commit more crimes or sexual abuse crimes than other people. It's not true. We looked for the data. In fact, me and you yesterday were we literally looked at the raw data. Okay, we didn't just read an article. I downloaded tables from the ONS and from the government website, searching up crimes based on ethnicity, and it's inconclusive because the police don't really report on suspects' ethnicity. The stats you had were prosecutions and convictions. We also have arrest rate, which, by the way, people will try and use the arrest rate as a way to push their racism. Well, black people get arrested more. Yes, because we have a racist system, right? Like stop and search. But ultimately, we don't really have that much information. When we were doing research, though, there was I forget the person's name, a statistician who literally said, I'm an expert in stats, and the data we have, it's inconclusive. I would side on the fact that it's proportionate. Basically, no one person of a particular race or religion perpetrates a particular crime more than anybody else. The problem is men. That's all it comes down to. It is just men. And we talk about how, or the right wing talk about how this country is not a multicultural society or multiculturalism has failed. But we don't talk about man culture, male culture. And that's something that permeates across the globe, not just in this country. You go to America. I mean, there are some states in America where you can literally marry children. No one talks about how America's we shouldn't have immigrants from America because they don't respect our laws and they're pedophiles. Well, the shit you hear about brown countries, basically, no one says that about America because we have a man problem, a male problem across the globe. And that's the culture we should be talking about because guess what? Rape culture certainly isn't incompatible with women. But the right wing do not want to look at that. They don't want to look at the fact that actually the crime, the danger comes from men, regardless if you're white, black, brown, atheist, Jewish, Muslim. It's men.